Hi, this is Dr. Helen Smith with PJTV. Today I'm at the beautiful St. Clair Shores in Michigan where the first ever International Men's Conference is being held. I talked to Carnell Smith, a pioneer for fighting paternity fraud in Georgia. Here's what he had to say. Carnell, what is paternity fraud for our viewers out there who kind of have an idea, but they've heard it, but they don't really know?
That's a great question.
Well, it's a big question.
Paternity fraud is usually a lawsuit that's brought forth alleging that a man or a teen boy is the father of a child. The fraud part is when there is a knowing and willful concealment of material facts. So let's put it together. Alleging that somebody is the father while at the same time hiding the information that he is not the father or he is one of the paternity candidates.
So tell us about maybe a case that you have or a case that might shed some light on a typical guy that this might happen to.
Okay. Well, there's actually 4 types, but I'll just, for benefit of the audience, I'll focus on one that happens a lot. We say we want single men to be responsible, and we want them to acknowledge that they're the father. Well, there's this process and technique that says, get the guy or the teenager to come to the hospital, get him to hold the baby, and tell him how much the baby looks like him, and then produce documentation and say, you want your child to have a father, right? What he doesn't know is that signing that document is a confession of paternity without any facts. Now, once he signs this document, and depending on what state in the United States, he is waiving his right to a DNA test later. And he'll find out later by using some third party that he has a reason to suspect that he might not be the father. And DNA testing will subsequently reveal he didn't cause the pregnancy that he just confessed to.
Now, does he have to pay for it?
As in most cases, he will have to pay for the test.
Even if the child isn't his?
Not all.
No, but he will have to pay child support even if the child is not his?
So you're asking about what is the worst case scenario here?
Yes.
If he signed that document, he'll have to pay child support after he knows he's not the dad, because many of the courts will fight him and say that it's his fault that he didn't find out sooner. And that, to me, works contrary to, well, how are we going to punish him for believing the child's mother, when at the same time she has no duty to disclose to him that either he's not the dad or he's one of the paternity candidates.
Now, people have told you that men, it doesn't really matter, it's not that important to them. What is your finding, and have you done anything in terms of just studies or just looking at how men feel or what this must be like to go through?
Wow. I actually contracted a project with a great friend and sociologist, Dr. Sharon Squires, from, I believe it's University of California, and she since subsequently moved to Atlanta, Georgia. We did a study over, I think, about 2,000 men. And what we found are some very telling things. Some of the impacts of men who found out they weren't the fathers: depression, anger, helplessness. This led to drug abuse, alcohol abuse, because at the same time that they're being forced to pay child support and large sums of money, they're also prevented from having a relationship with the child. So where's the benefit there?
And yet people don't really understand why men are so angry and get upset. They're always wondering, why are men always frustrated, and they think there's no reason, but nobody really looks at the way that men feel in these cases. And so you can sort of understand how men can get to the point where they commit suicide or they do things that are out of character.
Well, I've actually had a client commit suicide. And I'm also a man who also was an owner-operator of a DNA testing center. After my own experience of being a paternity fraud victim, I wanted to learn more about the number of people who are affected, learn things.
And how many are there? How many are there out there?
Well, here's the thing. The child support agencies are not really interested in finding out how many men are paternity fraud victims. But there's over 20 studies compiled by a good friend of mine, Barry Pearson, in the UK, that shows anywhere from 5 to 30% of the general population, men are raising and paying for children that are not theirs and don't know. According to the American Association of Blood Banks, between 25 and 30% of the males who are accused of being the father, they take a paternity test and find out they did not do it.
Are you for mandatory DNA testing at birth?
I am absolutely on record as saying that if we want to prevent the problem of having men challenge paternity later down the road, is then let's apply a proactive solution. Automatic DNA testing at birth would work to help two things. One, we would assure that the right parents were named on the birth certificate. Two, it would stop paternity fraud and take the profit out of paternity fraud.
But so many women's groups say this wouldn't be fair. You're acting like you don't trust the mother. Why do you think they say that?
It's a red herring. It takes away from the focus of, well, who's the one person who has all of the information about potential fathers or the paternity candidates? It is the child's mother. And currently, in most places, she has no duty to disclose that, well, wait a minute. Well, my husband's not really my child's father. My boyfriend is. Like, well, wait, lady. But you're married. You forgot that you were married? No. But thanks to no-fault divorce laws, she can get the house, the property, alimony, and child support, and then move the boyfriend into the house. Why would she tell the truth?
The system doesn't make it easy. So speaking of the system, what are you doing or what have you done to help change some of these laws that are so unfair to men?
Well, it's actually unfair to men, women, and children. See, I'm the guy that's officially on record saying that every child deserves to know the truth about their heritage, their ancestry. And you can't do that when you only rely on verbal representations, just take somebody's word for it. Oh, yeah, that's your dad. Yeah, but he looks like the FedEx guy. Oh, no. Well, actually, it could be the milkman. Well, no, we no longer have a milkman, but here's the problem. I have been very instrumental in raising the public awareness on the issue of paternity fraud as a problem that needs to be corrected. And by lobbying for and educating the public and lawmakers, I've written model law and helped them put that law in place so that, well, why not let's resolve the problem. Those people who've been bamboozled, tricked, deceived, release them. And if they want to have a relationship with a child that they thought was theirs, they do so on a voluntary basis without having a gun in their face saying you either pay or go to jail. But the sad part is here that many of those mothers, once it's been exposed, refuse to allow the man to have any type of relationship with the child. So then it was never about the child. I put the onus on the fact that it's always been about money and property. I'm just more honest about it.
What are some things that some of the men out there can do, maybe to protect themselves from paternity fraud? Is there anything?
Here's the sad part about this, Dr. Helen Smith. You can't prevent yourself from being a paternity fraud victim.
A lot of people just say, keep your legs closed. And I think this is the most outrageous thing I've ever heard, because if we said that to women, people would be like, what the F? I mean,
Yes. They would drop a few F-bombs and a few other choice words on us. Here's the thing. The law doesn't require the mother to even disclose to the court in many areas that this person, within the window of conception, here's this magic thing that guys need to know. You really need to know what is the date of conception of the child you're being accused of, and the 30 days before that and the 30 days after that, because within that window, anybody that she was intimately involved with could be the child's father. And since there's no duty to disclose that, whoever believes her is in trouble.
What about the ones that don't believe her? They're in trouble too.
They're in trouble too, because you can actually file a lawsuit against a man or a teenage boy just on the allegation that she says he did it, and therefore he is guilty before a court. And by the way, many people think that family court is a court of law, and it is not. It is a court of equity, which means that the judge has broad discretion to exclude truth, including a DNA test that proves he didn't commit the pregnancy he was accused of under oath.
How do we fight these laws? I mean, it almost feels overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, but this is why you need laws that limit judicial discretion. It shouldn't be up to the judge to decide that what truth is allowed in the evidence and what can be presented before the jury if you have a jury trial, or that the judge himself will actually review. The wrong question is often asked, Dr. Helen. So many people ask this question. They say, well, which man is the father? Wrong question. Right question is, who caused your pregnancy? Because now they've expanded the definition of father to social father, alleged father, presumed father, acknowledged father, affiliated father.
Anybody who's male.
And we can boil that down to whosoever believeth the lie is him.
Who is it that usually contacts you on your website?
You know, that media asks me that a lot, and they assume that paternity fraud is only a male or teen boy issue. There's 90% women who contact me about paternity fraud. Let me tell you who that woman is. She is the wife or second wife of the guy that's affected, fiance, girlfriend. How about the guy's mom? Because when you have a teen son and this happens, your income is on the table to be part of a child support order for your unemancipated son.
And I know that there are kids, in my book, Men on Strike, I looked at cases, and one of them was a boy 13 years old who had to pay child support. So, in other words, his parents are stuck paying that.
Yes, because an unemancipated minor is responsible, he's a responsibility of the parents, his parents. And unfortunately, when those people believe the accusation that their son caused the pregnancy without proof, they have no idea what kind of vulnerability, and they're putting their own assets on the table. Here's my statement. Trust but verify. I'm not saying that all of the moms are lying or being conniving and sneaky. That's absolutely not true. Some of them are making a mistake. You've heard of serial and parallel dating, haven't you? Well, here's the thing. Serial dating is when someone has a relationship and they end that relationship, they have intimate contact, and then start up with relationship B. They got pregnant with relationship A. And unfortunately, the next guy is a guy who believes it. Parallel dating, there's not many married women who are going to tell that, oh, by the way, I'm also dating your brother or your friend or your best friend, and by the way, the baby's theirs. The law, it actually favors in married situation, the law is favored to the married woman. Even though she might actually have a conscience and say, well, Your Honor, why do I have to put my husband's name on my birth certificate? I was living with my boyfriend at the time. Well, ma'am, the law says any children you have while you're married automatically belong to your husband.
In the old days, did this have some kind of reason for being, that there was no DNA testing, so everybody just assumed the married, if the couple was married, the kids were his?
Guess what? Even back in the old common law, old English common law, you can go back for 16th century, there were exceptions under the Lord Mansfield doctrine that said, yes, we might assume initially that the man was the father of the child unless he had no access to the mother during the window of conception. For example, if he's gone away for more than 9 months on the high seas, they didn't have airplanes back then, so we couldn't make a cross-continental flight in a couple of hours back then. So if he was gone away, there was an exception. But under the old common law, men didn't have to worry about the negative and financial impact of paternity fraud because the wife and children were chattel. They belonged to him. So there was no way he would surrender property, huge amounts of cash. He could literally put her and her child out to go to the biological father for care going forward. Now, some people think, well, that's not fair. Well, let's ask mom. Well, mom, why did you cheat on your husband? That's not fair.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been very informative, and we all of us appreciate what you're doing, fighting for justice out there, and it was really great interviewing you.
Well, thank you. And for people that want to learn more about the issue and how to connect with me, if you're a person who has a loved one, friend, or family who might be affected by this issue, you want to get educated first before you step into the arena. Paternityfraud.com. Paternityfraud.com.
And they can reach you there.
And they can reach me there. But if you really want to get me as your coach, your advocate, and your speaker, you need to connect to carnellsmith.com. And that will help you reach me to use my experience and expertise in over 12 years as a lobbyist, educational consultant, and one who has written model law, who was a paternity fraud victim, who went to the U.S. Supreme Court, who believes that justice should mean gender neutrality in the application of law.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This has been Dr. Helen Smith for PJTV. Thanks for joining us today.